Good afternoon. I'd like to call the September 13th, 2016 Energy Awareness Commission meeting to order. This is our first meeting of the new session. I'd like to welcome you and thank you all for being here. First thing we can do is review and take a look at the May minutes. Only error I found is I did not call the meeting to order because I was absent.
Oh,
Other than that, it looked like a very interesting meeting.
I will see about changing that.
If there are no corrections, revisions, or comments, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll offer. Oh, second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. And next thing on our list is to review the current income and expense summary sheet. And William, is there anything that you'd like to point out on that?
Well, I'd say currently we're at about 40% spending through the year. I'd like to see that a little bit higher, but I guess it has been low like that in the past, and we've been able to bounce back in some instances. I guess furnace cleaning rebate, currently not a lot of activity. That would be carryover from previous years. That will be beginning again, and I'll actually cover some of those yearly expenses in the next topic. Our high efficiency lighting rebate, that would be for commercial and industrial users. It's done very well so far this year. I think we'll still have more rebates coming through. I would guess they may slow down. We did have a couple large rebates that accounted for that. So, but I'm guessing that's just going to continue going up at about the same rate. It's going to be a large chunk of our total spending this year. The solar electric rebate, here it shows about $7,000. I believe actually we'll have about $12,000 that's been assigned for this year. And I'll talk about that a bit more in our solar topic. And then the industrial rebate, I do have some information. We may have some coming in, but very, very low so far this year. So, I could see that going up, but at this point, I don't have any applications submitted for it. And that would conclude my kind of highlights. I don't know if there's any additional questions from the commissioners.
Yeah, I would expect that the holiday LED that'll start kicking in. That high efficiency light rebate, that's wonderful. Furnace cleaning, yeah, that'll probably kick in as well. Obviously, we'll have to change some original total budget numbers around for next year, but overall, we're in pretty good shape.
I have a question. What do we do for the school education program?
The school education program, I guess that includes information that we give out to the fourth grade classes. So that's, I guess in some years we do pig bank ordering. So they receive a Let's Save Energy piggy bank. And then there's, I guess occasionally so they'd have that, there'd be ordering for books to give the kids. And then occasional small supplies for the presentation. And that's currently what's assigned to the school education programs.
Correct me if I'm wrong, William, but does Eileen Madsen go along with you?
Yep, usually Eileen Madsen
Give a
assists.
presentation into all of the schools, all of the fourth graders in the city of New Ulm. And as part of that, they incorporate the poster contest, which we also administer.
And then how about are we doing an open house? Is there going to be an open house?
There is an open house planned for this year, so that'd be the Public Power Week event. And I guess 5,000's been assigned. This year, that'd be a much smaller event. I don't think we'll use anywhere near the 5,000. And that's planned to be at City Hall. And I guess the date's been set, so we could maybe mention that now. It'd be October 6th. And what we hope to cover is some of our metering technology, all the way through the billing process, and now recently online payments, online payment and account access. So if you'd like to learn more about that, consider joining us for our Public Power Week event.
It's October 6th, what time?
It would be 8 to 5. We're determining some additional time periods where we may do the metering displays. I know one of our goals is to show how our meter collection works, collect some of the downtown reads, and I think we'll try to do that periodically throughout the day. That schedule hasn't been fully determined yet. But certainly, I think the overall event, if you want, assistance with online account setup, anything like that, our standard office hours from 8 to 5.
And notice that no one has used the energy audits yet?
Yep.
Are there applications pending, or?
There are some applications pending. That would be in case there's leftover energy audits that can't be completed, I guess, personally by me, and is currently, I guess, more of a placeholder than, anything else. But I think wise enough to leave it there, depending on where our spending comes in at the end of the year. And actually, I have completed a few walkthroughs with customers so far this year, so have been able to do a few, at least basic walkthroughs with customers.
My last question is on the low-income programs. I know this is year 2 of that program. How does this compare spending-wise with last year?
I guess I had looked at that and didn't collect the information for it.
Okay.
I guess it seems like in previous years, we've had higher spending through this point in time.
That was my,
And it's, I guess it's my impression that they do in fact have customers, and they've said that they, I believe they are estimating that they'll fill all of their proposed spending or allotted spending, but I have not seen the applications in from them, so.
alrighty.
So I guess, on their side, they're saying, yep, we should be able to reach near the spending amount you've assigned.
If not, they'll probably make something up, huh?
But, yeah, but at this point, we just don't have their applications in, so that's our current spending level.
Any other questions or concern on the expense and account summary? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve that.
I make a motion.
I'll
Second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have passed. Next on the agenda, we're going to review the solar electric rebate program. William, you touched on it briefly earlier. Now is your chance to
Okay.
go into detail.
Well, I guess recently we've been receiving more solar electric rebates, and actually it looks like through this point, and it's not shown within the budget because a few of them are going through this month, but we have about $13,000, or $13,920 worth of rebates that have been processed for this year. One of those was submitted essentially in 2015, but wasn't completed till the 2016 year. So I guess keep that in mind for that first total. And then there's about $4,000 in potential rebates from 2 residential customers that may or may not go through for the 2016 year. And I think would most likely be, we'd most likely hold those until the 2017 year, unless we were low on funding, which I guess currently we are, so may hold on to those rebates till later in the year at this point, if they are completed by the end of 2016. And then on the attached agenda, or the agenda packet, you can see I've organized some data for some of the installations in New Ulm, including one proposed installation for I guess one area that the city owns. And you can see how the pricing has changed over time, or even between various projects. There are some numbers here where we don't seem to have the full cost associated with it. In one case, I guess the $1.26 per installed watt cost, I believe that's only the materials for the project, does not include any of the labor. However, that's the information that I had submitted on hand. And then you can see some of these other programs, getting right around that $2.60 some cents, up to about $3 per watt installed cost.
So
And-
there's a proposal for a 39.6.
Yep, that's correct. That would be for, this was a proposal that was submitted to us for the New Ulm Civic Center.
Oh, okay.
And I don't, at this point, I think we're better off doing energy efficiency measures. But it was a proposal that was submitted and reviewed by staff. And the approximate pricing seems to come out to about $2.80 per watt installed. And that does seem to be, about on par with some of the other pricing we've seen just recently, or even potentially on the higher side of some of the pricing we've seen for some of the smaller residential projects.
And how do we determine what their rebate is?
So the rebate is currently, and I guess thinking about this, I could have included the rebate here, but the rebate is $1 per watt installed currently. So that is where our rebate's currently set up, which, as you can see, I guess, maybe in 2011 was covering a much smaller portion of the install cost. And as solar prices have dropped over time, that's covering a larger and larger portion of the total costs. I guess the other thing to keep in mind is there is a federal tax rebate as well. And that's about a 30% federal tax credit. So out of that, $3 cost, you would receive a $1 rebate from the New Ulm Public Utilities. Potentially up to a maximum amount. I guess that would be 10,000 industrial, 5,000 commercial, and 2,000 for residential customers. So you could receive the $1 per watt. You could receive a 30% federal tax rebate. Then you'd only have about $1 of associated costs left for your own personal project that you would need to fund remaining. And I think maybe moving on to some of our additional items, maybe time to consider adjusting the rebate amount that we're paying down from $1 per watt installed to another amount. I guess my current recommendation would be 50 cents per watt installed. However, there may be arguments for 25 cents per watt installed, or even potentially just ending the program as far as rebates are concerned. And I've included a few other rebate programs that are still in existence for solar electric programs. And it appears that just about all of them are around that 50 cents per watt installed mark.
Yeah, and I noticed that Dakota, it's 50 cents per watt, not to exceed $4,000, so kind of protecting themselves that with which wouldn't be a bad idea as well.
Owatonna has a maximum too of 5,000, isn't it? Yeah, photovoltaic.
And I guess that could be part of the discussion as well. Currently my thoughts are to adjust the dollar per watt portion of the rebate, but we could certainly look at the maximum for each customer class as well. Perhaps reduce the industrial or the commercial rebate maximum.
William and perhaps Patrick have the costs of our purchased solar power dropped as well?
Commissioners, our purchased solar, we don't have we have renewable energy, but we don't have specific
Oh,
solar
sure, that's right.
energy
Is that
supplies.
through the Heartland?
Our renewable energy comes from wind energy and the Wessington Springs Wind Project in South Dakota through Heartland, as you mentioned.
Okay, so at present time, we are not purchasing any solar power.
Not through contract. We do, as
Sure.
William has shared with you, have several small generators on the system that supply first and foremost their own electrical energy, but in the event that they generate more than is used on the site, it feeds into our grid system, and then they're paid at our retail rate, which is approximately 12 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yep, that's
that correct,
correct,
William?
Pat.
So we don't have any direct contracts or any firm supply contracts, but we're buying a little bit of energy from our producers out on the system.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess just a note for some of the example rebate programs that are currently out there. The Excel program is a bit interesting because it's a rate that's given back per kilowatt hour sold. So that 8 cents. And I guess I calculated it out, if you were to sell back all of that power to Excel, break down their rebate to somewhere around 88 cents per watt is my rough estimate. So they'd be a little bit lower than our current dollar per watt, a little higher than the 50 cent per watt. One stipulation that they have is they would own the renewable energy credits portion of that energy that's sold. So that may be why they're above that 50 cents mark as well.
So for the installation costs on the solar, do you feel like we've kind of reached where we're going to sit as far as cost, or do you see it still going down some? Or
I guess in my opinion, we've seen both lowering costs for the actual price per watt installed to purchase the panels and produce the panels, as well as the install costs. And in fact, I think we're getting closer to that floor for install costs, but I think the competition will be starting to increase. I've seen, I guess, due to some of the changing laws in Minnesota, quite a few more installers either getting into it or coming into the Minnesota area. So I would guess we'd see actual install costs continue to drop, as well as the actual price per panel.
Yeah, there are more vendors and installers coming into our state and approaching, so it's a very volatile issue right now. But as per William's comments, perhaps we should adjust our rebate amount. That being said, I would like to honor the existing applications that we do have in the system.
I would say we should honor them as long as they're installed within a certain period of time. So like, I don't know if the proposed ones, if we honor that for the next year or when they're planning what their completion date is, or if it's just a proposed and, 3 years later they come back and want that same, so.
Yeah, I would, for the two applications that we do have that are still pending currently, I would say that those are estimated to be completed either by the end of this year or beginning of next year. And we'll see how that works. Usually they're, around that time frame. If they say beginning of next year, it may be
Right, right.
mid next year by some point. But I think both of these projects would be somewhere around that time frame. And I think we probably could continue that. I guess looking at those rebate programs for those two customers, if we were to drop the rebate to 50 cents per watt installed, due to the residential cap, their total rebate amount would actually not change. Both have large enough installations, they reach the cap even at that 50-cent mark.
So then there would be no reason really to maintain that dollar rebate for them.
Yep,
Good.
that would be correct. And then I guess just a personal comment as far as timing for the rebates. I guess at this point in the year, I guess we could see there could be more rebates that come in, but I would propose to look at the first of the year to do that change, to officially change it over to the 50 cents rate. But, I think I'm open to suggestion as far as that rate is concerned. I think 50 cents would put us in line with, many of the other utilities' current rebate rates. And I think we may still be in a position where it does make sense to promote solar. However, that may change rapidly over time. I think as these rates continue to drop, we get closer and closer to actual grid parity. And I would say that the numbers I've heard is about $1 per watt installed would meet grid costs. So, yes, if you're getting both the PUC rebate and a federal tax credit at $3 per watt, the customer install cost is right around that dollar mark.
I think 50 cents is reasonable. I'm wondering about the maximum incentive, if we want to look at changing that on the commercial side to 5,000. I think it's high compared to other communities. And can you remind me of what's the benefit of us incentivizing solar
Well,
to
I
the
think,
utility?
yeah, I guess, well, one portion would just be to encourage the use of the technology. I think the other benefit is it does reduce the power draw on the grid. So that's the reason why it is considered to be part of the conservation improvement programs. Now that may be, because you're producing power, so it's not exactly the same as conserving power through more efficient appliances. But I guess the end result, appears to be the same. And in most cases, you're reducing the load from that customer. So that's one of the reasons why it is allowed under the conservation improvement programs.
Do you know, is there any more talk about community solar? We've talked about that.
I think that's an ongoing discussion for the Public Utilities and Long-Term Power Committee. And I think we're currently looking at how to best address how that affects our overall rate base for the customers. So I think we're not ready to move forward with a community solar project at this time, but it's certainly being discussed. And that, I guess if that was to be available, that may be, additional reasons to change
Right.
the solar rebate program. But I don't see that happening in the next, year or two. So it's certainly a changing field out there. But I think at this point we're still just in the initial discussion phase.
Yeah, I just think it would open it up to more households taking advantage of solar, with the community solar, and then also save some of that risk of having it on all the different homes and different projects throughout the system.
And I
Ben?
think that that's certainly a good benefit to the community solar projects. And I think just not operational yet, and it
Yeah.
may be
Yeah.
maybe a ways out depending on what our findings are with the long-term power committee discussions.
As an aside to that, I had discussion with a solar energy representative at the state fair. And I came right out, presented myself as a member of a Public Utilities Subcommittee on Energy Conservation, and I asked this person, is there any advantage right now of community solar? And this person was very honest with me. She says, not at the present time. So, and this is from a person who does it for a living, so. But obviously, this is something changing again, and we can look at any time.
So she felt that the way to go was an individual system rather than community solar?
At the present time. And I thought I kept their brochure, but obviously I lost it.
Well, I guess, maybe the rate, 50 cents, might sound reasonable. We could agree to that. Otherwise, I guess the current rebate maximums is actually, I believe, 10,000 for industrial customers, 5,000 for commercial, and 2,000 for residential. Is there any discussion on maybe reducing those maximum amounts?
I think at least like at the commercial level, maybe think about reducing that maximum a little bit.
Maybe put it at 5,000 for either.
Okay, 5,000 for commercial and
And
industrial.
industrial.
Yeah, I think so.
And that would certainly help to maybe prevent one customer from taking, just about all of our funds that are available for that program.
So as I hear it, we are discussing reducing our solar rebate to 50 cents per kilowatt hour effective 1st of January of 2017 with a $5,000 commercial or industrial cap. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes.
I would now entertain a motion.
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor of said motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Moves us on to number 4, natural gas conservation improvement programs. William, what you got for us?
Okay. Well, after reviewing some of our budget numbers for the 2017 year, just taking a look at our natural gas spending, and looks like the proposed spending amount would be $33,000. I guess in the past, the New Ulm Public Utilities has been below the cutoff threshold to be required to offer a natural gas conservation improvement program. In the 2014 year, we actually did exceed that due to a colder year and just higher sales of natural gas. I guess here you're seeing revenue. We had both higher natural gas sales and higher natural gas pricing. And so for the 2016 year, we were obligated to offer programs. Luckily, we did have a few programs that were already in place, and we just kind of expanded those programs for the available funding amount, or in some cases just left them the same. I think for the 2017 year, we're not necessarily obligated to offer those programs, but decided to continue on and offer those rebate programs to the customers. And I guess looking at our current funding for each of those programs on the following page, you can see that I guess we have about that, somewhere around that $33,000 already assigned within our programs. And I've done a tally of some of our averages. So the furnace cleaning rebate program, the 2012 to 2015 average has actually been $26,000 spent for that program. The furnace rebate program, that'd be the install, has been about $22,000 on average. And then the water heater rebate is about $1,800 for an average. So even on our, I guess an average year would actually put our natural gas spending over the proposed conservation improvement program budgets, other than our very high year, that $55,000 mark for 2016. So I thought that would be good information to bring back to the Energy Awareness Commission, that even with kind of our base level programs for natural gas savings, we're actually potentially meeting the spending requirements for the natural gas conservation improvement programs. I think my preliminary calculations show that we're meeting the spending goal, but not achieving the savings goal on that side. But I think that may change over time. And I think that kind of concludes that portion for me. I guess we'd, typical spending year, be looking at about, probably about $48,000 for natural gas spending. And then I guess moving forward, we had talked about purchasing water conservation kits. I still need to discuss coordination of distributing those kits with staff members. So I don't think we're ready to move forward with that program for today's commission meeting.
Okay.
And then updates and new programs for natural gas conservation. I think that would be wise to consider updates, and particular to the furnace install program. I don't have those updates at this time. Looking at the average total spending per year for our natural gas programs, outside of the water conservation kits, I'm not sure that we need to look at additional programs at this time. I think the water conservation kit would be a low total budget amount. I think it would make sense to move forward with that project.
Good bang for the buck.
Yeah, I think that's right. According to our calculations from the last meeting, it may in fact have a better bang for the buck than some of our current programs, even potentially than the furnace check and cleans. But, I think as far as additional programs for natural gas, we would need to evaluate where our funding's coming in, and I think we're already up near that limit.
Based on what you're saying then, I guess I probably would consider, let's propose putting off the water conservation kits until you get more information, and as well as updating or adding any more programs at the present time. We'll wait for you to investigate those further. When you're ready to make a proposal, we're here to listen. Any other questions on natural gas conservation improvement? Moves us on to the community solar. We just touched on it briefly. William, I believe you had reached out to Moorhead as far as...
Yeah, that's correct. And as I hadn't set up a time, I could see if they would be interested in doing a presentation for the Energy Awareness Commission. Or I guess Pat had mentioned that perhaps due to the distance they may have to travel, to see if they have a pre-made PowerPoint presentation about their services that we could display here at the Energy Awareness Commission. So just looking for feedback before I pursue that option, and then maybe, preference for the Energy Awareness Commission members as well.
I guess before begging them to come all the way down here, if they would have a program or just a summary for us to review. If we had any further questions at that time, then we could maybe pursue the matter further.
Okay.
That's a good idea. That's a long ways.
It's a long ways to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will pursue that method then. If we still have interest in hearing about their program, I think that's one of the larger programs and better known programs for community solar that's owned by a public utility.
Patrick, are you aware of any other municipal utility solar programs that,
Well, Commissioners, I'm aware of a number of community solar projects in the Twin Cities area, and typically they're within the Xcel service area, where the state Public Utilities Commission has required that Xcel Energy purchase a sizable portion of its energy from these community solar projects. So they're required to do it. Outstate Minnesota, not so much. The Moorhead Community Solar Project, I'm aware of.
South Central, I think, South Central Co-op has
South Central
one.
Co-op.
I believe Meeker County Co-op has a solar project, a community solar project. And I believe Laverne is looking at doing a solar project.
Sure.
So there are some out there.
I think there are and they're good
Mhm.
examples that we can look at.
Mhm.
With the community solar project with our municipal utility, the way that I see it, we would build and own that project, and we would own the energy that comes off of it. So part of the difficulty in doing that is, even though solar is coming down, there would still be an upward pressure on our wholesale power rate, right? They're a good deal price-wise. Right now, William, your earlier comment at $1 per watt, they're on parity with the grid. I think we're on parity with the retail rate right now at $3 a watt. A person can construct a project and generate for essentially what we can sell the power for. So for us to give an incentive there, we're creating somewhat of a windfall situation for the folks that do this. With the community solar, if we're able to develop a project for half of that, our cost per kilowatt hour would be in the 7-cent range, and that is slightly above our wholesale supply right now. So we would have to gauge an interest to see if members of the community would be interested in taking part in a community project, knowing that we would have to charge a little bit more for it, right, than probably our wholesale rate. So there's some details we have to work out, but I think we can get there and have a proposal ready for the commission to consider.
and if I'm correct, obviously there are no tax credits to
That's
a
correct.
municipal utility.
No tax credits, but there are developers that would that do have an appetite for the tax credits that have approached us and would like to come in and build as a community solar project, monetize the tax credits on their behalf and share some of that benefit with us. So that gets the price down to that 7-cent range where it's close to our pooled power supply cost. I'm probably getting into a little bit too much detail here, but it's close to our pooled supply. The fact of the matter is the solar itself would be replacing our power that we buy on the market, which is very attractively priced right now. So it will be displacing cheaper power.
Very good. And to all of the commissioners, Patrick Rossi is the new, again, returning chairman of our public utilities, or director of our public utilities. And Patrick has been here before, and we're glad to have him back.
Patrick, I have another question for you. You had said that you think we're at parity now with the cost of the solar at that or $2 to $3.
Yep, at about,
So you're saying that maybe even the 50 cents that we just recommended might be a little high? Do
Well,
you think
I-
we should go lower? Do you recommend?
Commissioner Fisher, I don't see the harm in continuing 50 cents for this time, but I think we, as William stated, we need to be prepared to possibly react to this in the future. The project that was discussed with us was a larger project. It was this 39.6 kilowatt project, which is bumping up against the limit on a small power producer tariff that's prescribed by the state PUC. So it's right at the limit. It's a larger project. It's probably going to receive an economy of scale price for that project. But when we do the simple cost analysis of that project and look at it, not giving a time value to the money, but just taking the simple all-in cost, dividing it by the amount of power we would project that it would generate over a 20-year lifespan, it comes in right at about 12.3, 12.4 cents. Obviously, there's, it's more detailed than that, but the simple analysis shows we're pretty close to parity right now. So if they're able to monetize tax credits and if we're giving an incentive, there becomes a point where we're paying you to generate power at a lower cost than we can provide it for, which you then sell back to us at a higher cost, and it costs the rest of our customers money. So on a small scale, I don't see that there's an immediate harm, but I think that we should keep an open mind towards looking at possible reductions to this in the future. As you know, Commissioner Fisher, the rebate programs are there to help our customers with a decision to invest in a more expensive technology that saves energy. If it's more expensive lighting or equipment in the home, well, here we're talking about equipment that is essentially the same cost now as the product that we offer as our primary product. So we may not be quite there with the smaller installations, the 2, 3, 4 kilowatt on individual households, but I think we're there in that 30 to 40 kilowatt range right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioner comments or items that you'd like to discuss? Just a note that we are looking for another commissioner. So if anyone who's watching this program or fellow commissioners, if you can think of someone, please give the name either to myself or to Mayor Boisman. If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned at 5:45. Thank you.